Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be, don't become a doormat. I've got 3 emails I'm going to go through with you today, and one of them is kind of like some real Jerry Springer kind of shit. But before we get into it, I got a quote that I wrote on this topic I want to share with you before we get into the first email. And it says, people often, out of their own lack of self-respect and self-love, will tolerate physical, mental, and emotional abuse. They literally invite others to use them, take advantage of them, mistreat them, and take them for granted. If you are dating, in a friendship, or in an intimate relationship with someone who does not value you or treat you properly, but you continue to take their abuse without standing up for yourself, you are enabling their behavior. One of the most difficult but freeing things you can do for yourself is to stand up for yourself and walk away from people and relationships where you are not valued, appreciated, and loved. The strongest negotiating position is being able to walk away and mean it. So let's go ahead and jump right into the first email. This guy says, hey coach, I'll do my best to articulate the situation here. I'm 29 and single for most of my life. I am an independent, creative type person with insecurities like everyone else. She's 24, single for about a year after a 4-year relationship. I was dating about 4 or 5 girls through the summer, having a good time, a good old time he says, confident and reckless, when one night of partying about 4 months ago, I meet this girl. It just kind of happens that way. You're hanging out, having fun and hooking up, and all of a sudden you meet some girl that just stops you in your fucking tracks. It's fun when it happens like that. It's beautiful. It's just magical when you meet somebody and you fucking connect, and you're just like always together. But if your game's not tight, if you don't know this stuff backwards and forwards that I teach in my book because you read it 10 to 15 times, when this happens, that beautiful love story is going to turn into a fucking train wreck. Please, please, please do yourself a favor and read my book 10 to 15 times. Don't wait until you meet a girl who knocks your socks off, even if you're just because the women you're dating right now are not exactly the kind of women that you want, but you're having fun. Because if you're not prepared, if you don't know the information well, when you meet somebody that knocks your socks off, all of those insecurities and fears and doubts that you have about yourself, they're really going to come to the forefront, and you're going to have to deal with them. And it's hard to do the right thing with a woman when you're still learning this stuff and applying the things that I teach in my book, and trying to overcome your fears, your insecurities, and doubts. You're going to make it 1,000 times harder than it needs to be. And screwing up with a girl who you really like and you really have a passion for, it hurts like a motherfucker. And it takes a long time to get over that. So please do yourself a favor and read my book 10 to 15 times. He says, we hit it off right away, and we connect a few days later, and we're pretty much off to the races. He says, at this particular time, I had booked the second leg of my travels to Central America for about 3 weeks. It was going to take place about 3 weeks after we had met. This was known, and yet she goes crazy for me, and I for her. It's mutual attraction. I leave, it's tough to say goodbye, and then that I proposed that she join me 2 months later in Mexico. I leave a few days later, a few days go by, we make contact, things progress via long distance, and some weeks are hotter than others. It's just the ebb and flow of the universe. You got to go with the flow. You can't go, oh my God, she didn't call me back right away. Oh my God, she hasn't texted me back right away. What's going on? Let me text her and blow up her phone. Maybe she's busy. Maybe she's got appointments. Maybe she's got other things going on. Maybe she's dropping a deuce. Who knows? Maybe she's dropping a squid, pinching a loaf off. I mean, come on. It's like, people get busy. They got shit going on. And sometimes women will purposely they'll go, oh, I'll call you later, or I'll get in touch with you later, or I'll call you tomorrow. And then they don't. And they call you 2 or 3 days later. And a lot of women know that the needy, insecure jackasses, which is most of the guys that are out there act this way, won't be able to take it. And they're like, hey, what happened? How come you haven't called me back? Are you okay? Is everything all right? Are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong? And they just make themselves look weak, needy. And then she starts going, and then you never hear from her again. He says, she books a flight, and we spend 2 weeks together of pure heaven. Sounds like a good time. Things get really intense, and one of these emotional nights, I say I'm going to come home early for an important event that she's a part of. Fireworks, tears, blah, blah. She goes home. I continue my travels and book my flight home for the event. Most of our conversations are about how much we like each other. Then 3 weeks ago, via long distance, I confess my love for her and she returns the statement. It's always much better to do that in person. And if you're learning this stuff, it's much better if you just wait till the woman tells it to you first. Why? Because if you're a guy, the average guy is way too impatient, way too needy, and way too focused on locking a girl down to a commitment. Women fall in love slowly over time. It is a process that you absolutely cannot rush. And anytime a guy tries to rush it, that's where he gets himself into really bad trouble and fucks things up. He says, note, I now realize that I'm breaking every rule in the book. If once you embody this stuff, you can break the rules, certain rules. Now don't take that statement and take a fucking mile with it. All I'm saying is that when you embody this stuff and you own this, you energetically own it, and you come from a place of centeredness and masculinity, and you're comfortable in your own skin, and you don't feel like you lack anything. If you call a girl, you leave a message for a girl, you wait for her to get back to you. You wait for her to call you back. And you're cool with that. And it shows up in every little interaction that you're with her. She can sense that. And the reason I have all these techniques and strategies in my book is to help people, men and women both, who are trying to overcome this internal weakness, these limiting beliefs that they've developed through either friends, family, their upbringing, or they've taken on that society has given them. He's about 2 weeks after the L word popped up, things slowly began to change. Then one day, about 5 days ago, the text changed their tone. There were hints at pushing me away. It's like when a woman starts to back away like that, usually it's because you've either said something that's upset her by being a dick or being a jerk or being unkind or unloving, or you're coming on too strong, you're pursuing too much, you're texting too much. The guy should never be doing 20 to 30% of the calling, texting, and pursuing, the initiating. Because feminine energy is all about bonding, connection, relationships, relating to one another. And so when a guy does those things, when a guy does more than 20 to 30% of the initiating, every fucking time, I can set my watch to it. When I'm reading emails or I'm coaching people, and he tells me that his woman's not in love and they've been dating for like 6 months or a year, she's just not feeling it. It's one of the first things I ask him. I'll ask him, what percentage of texting and calling is initiated by you and what percentage by her? And 100% of the time, they always tell me that they're doing more than that critical 30%. Because women have to have the time away from you to wonder about you, to think about you. It's like the analogy I often talk about. It's in my book. And I talk about it in countless videos. Is women are like cats. When cats get bored, they go and they roam the neighborhood. You can't run around the neighborhood chasing after them, because then the cat's just going to run away and not come back at all, because the cat's going to think you're a little nutty. The cat's going to come back whenever it fucking pleases. Just be grateful when it shows up. It'll jump in your lap and start purring. He says, I changed tone, but also continued communication as usual. Then 2 days ago, the text stopped altogether, ending with some polite exchange about plans for the weekend. My text was the last one, open-ended, no response for 2 days. Well, part of the problem is you're doing all this texting back and forth instead of making dates. Now, I understand that you were long distance, but in that particular case, especially when it's long distance, it's always better that if she wants to talk or chit-chat, you let her reach out to you. And then maybe once a week, you initiate contact and set up a Skype date or a FaceTime date or some kind of video conferencing that you can do where you can see each other and talk to one another. That's the best thing. It's the closest you can get to not being together in person. But when the guy is constantly texting the woman 2 to 3 times a day, and she's maybe once a day or every other day, you got to pay attention to those things. And what happens is the woman starts backing away, and the guy sees this, he thinks, oh, I got to do more. And so he actually starts texting and pursuing and chasing more, and this pushes her away even more. And then the guy goes into panic mode and starts getting fearful, and then it gets to the point where he's doing all the calling and texting and pursuing. And then the power is completely flipped at that point. When a woman starts to back off, you back off. She needs a little space. She wants to feel her freedom. She wants to feel what it's like to be away from you and make sure you're not going to just totally fucking come unglued. I'm aware that the person she met slowly changed into a complete pussy. A complete open book helped by her making me feel comfortable. Yeah, it's like you thought, hey, this girl really likes me, I got this stuff down, you're not really prepared, and then fucking train wreck happens. He says, I believe we had something real. It was at the time that it was happening, definitely. And I fucked up by getting lost in lust, losing myself, and putting her first. He says, I've done this a few times now in my life when I really fall for a girl. In other words, you started acting dopey, and you started giving your power away. You started letting her push you around. You started being extra nice because she was an extra special girl. And there's nothing wrong with her being extra special. But when you're nice to the point where you let her push you around and jerk you around and start disrespecting you, they're subtle in the beginning, just like the video that I did on subtle testing the other day. But when she senses weakness, she starts becoming bolder and more rude and more disrespectful because you're not acting like a man. You're not acting like you have any value. You basically become a doormat and you let her just walk all over you. And the emails I'm going to get to in a few minutes, the guys are even more to the extreme in this particular case. He says, I guess I'm looking for some guidance on what to do now. I guess I would like a second chance to not be a pussy now knowing how much of a bitch I had become. Well, at least you own that and you realize you can look at yourself without any attachment. Like, hey, I was acting like a fucking weak, needy bitch. I was acting like a woman. He says, do I walk away 100% or wait a certain amount of time? It's 3 weeks until I go home, so communication via FaceTime or text till then. 0 contact, 5% contact with no I love you BS, etc. Or something else. Just wait to hear from her. And when she does reach out, it might be a few days, maybe it's a week. That tells you everything about where she's at emotionally. And when she does, just say, hey babe, it's so great to hear from you. I love the video Skype, or I'd love to FaceTime and catch up with you, see how you've been. I miss you. And then plan a day and a time where you can actually talk on video Skype. And be the one to end the phone call after you talk for 10 or 15 minutes. Just say, honey, it was so great seeing your gorgeous face. I cannot wait to see you in a few weeks. I got to run. I got a lot of stuff I got to take care of. I got a trip I'm going on. I got a tour that I'm going on. Obviously you're on a vacation now, I assume, at this point in Central America. But I want you to know I'm thinking about you all the time. I can't wait to see you and kiss those beautiful lips of yours. But I got to run. I'll talk to you later, or call me later. Say it like that. And then walk. And wait to hear from her. If you don't hear from her for a whole week, after that particular phone call, then reach out to her a week later and say, hey babe, just wanted to see how you were, let you know I was thinking about you. Love to FaceTime chat with you. Let me know when you're free so we can plan something. And just leave it at that. You're pursuing too much. And that's part of your problem. You're driving her away and you're making her feel smothered. It's a bad way to go. It's simple what you have to do to turn things around, but you got to bite your tongue, and it might be tough because you might not hear from her right away. So let's get into the second email. So this guy says, hey Corey, first of all, I want to say thank you for all you do. Your videos and book have picked me up when I needed it. I feel I have spent the last 2 years of my life with an abusive, toxic woman. I know I stepped out of my masculine many times, so I'm very confused with one thing. Are there women out there that no matter what you do or how you act, they're toxic and broken? Absolutely. Just like there are plenty of men that are out there that are that way. They're fucked up and they got a lot of work that they need to do on themselves. Maybe they need counseling, maybe they need therapy. It's not your job to fix somebody. It's not your job to try to parent them or make them into the kind of person that you want. So he says, 2 years ago I met a woman who I thought was the one, and she presented herself as a classy, independent mother of two. She was an officer in the military reserve and a nurse finishing up her master's degree. Sounds good so far. It was amazing. After 4 months, she was very attentive, talking all night in bed about marrying me one day, and started adding to the family that we would have. And I agreed that this was a great idea. Well, 4 months in, it's pretty soon. That's a very short time to be talking about those things. That's why you need to date somebody for several years before you think about getting married. Because you got to get past this infatuation, the honeymoon period, to get to the... Because it takes... People can hide who they are for the first 90 days of a relationship. So it takes just that long, just the first 3 months, just to figure out who you really are with. And then you can see them under like normal conditions, how they are day in and day out, when they're not putting their best foot forward, when they get a little bit complacent, when they get really comfortable with you. He said red flags arose through this, though. And she told me that she was a Christian but slept with multiple men in the military in the year since she had been divorced. She actually told me that her supervisor basically raped her when she was drunk and then asked to go camping with him. I also saw some inappropriate texts from her ex-husband pop up in her phone. The shit hit the fan after 5 months when she came to my door and told me she was pregnant. My response was one of joy, and hers was, "This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I want an abortion." Well, that kind of sucks. After this, I was devastated. It's understandable. Obviously, you were excited about being a dad, and she wasn't so excited about being a mom again. Then her dad suddenly passed away, and she goes in this deep depression and wants nothing from me and stares for hours and won't talk to me. But she's on her phone all the time, which is locked. I start noticing she's talking to about 3 other men that she had no relationship with but had casual sex with them. It's amazing. She's just kind of rubbing that shit in your face. So her family comes to me and tells me I better hope she aborts the baby because she emptied out her ex-husband's 401k. Nice. Sounds like a quality girl. He was a spineless doormat 20 years older than her, and she abused him and treated him awfully. Well, that's not a good sign. He found sex messages to other people in the military that she had sent, and she then divorced him quickly and voluntarily deployed for 6 months and was sleeping with men on deployment but used condoms. LOL, her words. She left him with a 6-month-old and a 1.5-year-old, and he's 50. All of this, and then after all of this, she miscarried on a business trip to Chicago. If she was ever really actually pregnant. Maybe she was. You know, some women lie about that stuff. To manipulate a guy or to keep a guy around, they'll say that they're pregnant. He says, then told me that I never wanted the baby, and I could never understand what she went through, even though I tried every form of communication known to man. I broke up with her 4 times in the past year after all of this. I found out that she'd been living with an ex the whole time. Never included me in any military functions, weddings, vacations, etc. That's definitely a red flag, dude. I never met her ex in 2 years, and she said it would hurt his feelings and they were best friends. Sounds like she's got so many lies going on, she can't keep them all straight. Probably doesn't want to get everybody together, because then it would blow her whole illusion that she's got going with everybody. She always said things to gouge at me and threw out hints that made me look like a controlling weirdo when all this came too much bottled up inside me. She would stare into space for hours one day and then the next want me to fuck her brains out, saying I love you more than anything. Sounds like she's like a manic depressive, like maybe a little bipolar thing going on there. Again, it's not your job to fix somebody that's like this. She came back this last time and said, you're the man I want, and she bought a house and paid $20,000 too much for a house that was half eaten by termites, which my dumb ass fixed. How nice of you, how generous. She told me that I would see her girls and then wouldn't let me. She refused to not live with an ex even though she had an apartment the whole time until she moved into a new house and didn't even attempt to see me on Christmas. Obviously, you're really important to her. If you're so important to her, she couldn't make time for you on Christmas. Probably because she was hooking up with somebody else. So I'm an idiot, and I have said no contact with her, and I'm dating and bettering myself. Sorry, so long. He says, I wasn't perfect, and I was needy at times, and I lashed out saying some pretty hurtful stuff on 2 different occasions. This is just an example of about 10% of the hurtful and demeaning things that she did over 2 years. She made me feel crazy because she was so calm and stable, and I would freak out every couple of months and leave. I never hit her, raised my voice, or threw temper tantrum. So this guy goes on to say, here's another thing, little tidbit of information he shares about her. He says, oh, I forgot to tell you about her family. Her mom cheated on her dad and left him for a married man who was totally bankrupt. Her dad was an alcoholic who killed someone while driving drunk, then supposedly canceled her life insurance policy and 2 days later committed suicide. 2 brothers of hers are drug addicts and in prison. 1 brother shot himself. 2 half-sisters are divorced twice and have multiple children with many different guys. She's also about $200,000 in debt with approximately $50,000 in actual collateral. Bro, she sounds like a really great catch. And so, my answer is, yeah, there's this woman, she's like a broken little bird. And it's like, you can't fix that. It's like she comes from obviously a very whacked out, fucked up family. And at least as of where she's at right now, she hasn't done the work that she needs to do on herself to heal herself. And plus she's a liar. And it's obvious that she's probably screwing around on you, or was screwing around on you the whole time that you were together with her. But just like you said, you kind of enabled her behavior by accepting these things and going along with it and hoping that things would get better. But, it's like you really dodged a bullet there, dude. Because just imagine having a child with somebody like that. And it's hard when you love somebody and you care about somebody. It's like initially in the beginning, in the honeymoon period, everything's great. And then it's like once things start kind of going sideways, when you're not putting your best foot forward, when she's not putting her best foot forward, then you get to see what you're really dealing with. And that's why it's so important to know the information really well in my book so you can remain objective and not just get totally lost in the fact that she's really beautiful and you're having a really great time with her. So I'm just going to go through 2 of the emails because I noticed that the third one here, the guy didn't want me to answer it in a YouTube video, so I'm going to answer that one privately offline. But this is, these are like 2 kind of good examples of what to avoid, and where both situations where the guys in essence allow themselves to become doormats, and you just don't want to do that. Because like when you stick around and you put up with this behavior, just like I said in the quote at the beginning of the video, you are enabling the other person. You are inviting them to continue to treat you this way. And like I've said many times in the past, no one will ever do or say anything to you that you don't invite them to do. You got to get to the point where you're strong enough to walk away from these bad situations. And I know I had a hard time with it because one of the women I wrote about in my book was passive aggressive, and I love that girl. She was fucking a lot of great things about her. But there was so much baggage and so much bullshit drama that went along with being with her, and she was a terrible communicator on top of that. After about 3 years, it's like you just get tired of it. It just fucking wears you out. If you date somebody that's got their shit together and they come from a decent family, or at least they've done the work on themselves to get themselves into a good place, you can have a healthy relationship with them. Because when they're not at that place, it's like it's a fucking train wreck, and life is just too short. Because you got to choose very carefully the person you spend your life with or your time with, because 95% of your happiness or your misery is going to come from that one decision. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone session. You can do that by going to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and follow the instructions. And I will talk to you soon.